considering that you would not be earning for 2 years, it's a loss of 30 plus 30, 60. Then you have a loan of 25
to 30
if you kind of haven't had your saving. So all of that adds up to, I think, a really huge number. So yeah,
90 lakhs precisely.
You see people who are say 7 years into the company, the kind of work that they are getting. Does that excite you? You have to build that social equity, that you are trustworthy. Or people who have already been in tech, in the industry for more years than you have, when they are doling out advices, you better. At times you'd be able to get away with it. But that comes and bite you in the back when you are interviewing. Take good courses, implement side projects, and पूछने में क्या जाता है.
Hi there, I'm back again with an amazing podcast episode. Our today's guest is really special because this is the first non-MBA guest I've had in my show. He's my batchmate and friend from NIT Jamshedpur, but there are so many better ways to introduce him. For starters, Shubham Gaurav finished his B.Tech from NIT Jamshedpur, then went on to join Samsung, then switched to CarDekho, and these are the offers he's just accepted. There were so many others that he decided to reject. He is a serial switcher, in the best sense. And the reason I called him to the show is because very often we've discussed MBA versus a career in tech. In today's conversation, we cover topics like a career in tech, tech versus MBA, how to upskill, how to switch jobs, what is it that you should look out for, how should you grow your CV, what is the opportunity cost for someone like him to do an MBA. You will especially find this conversation helpful if you have anything to do with tech, either you're a college student or a working professional who is ever had a thought of doing an MBA. We cover all of it and more. Hi Shubham, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I know you are someone who's a little different from what my audience generally expects from me, but I also get so many questions about a tech role versus an MBA, and I thought I don't know anyone better to compare this other than you. So I had to get you to my podcast. So for context, Shubham and I, we are batchmates from NIT Jamshedpur. He was in electrical engineering and I was in electronics, but our careers have been very different. And he's continued in tech, whereas I got into a production role and then decided to do an MBA, but he stayed in tech. So we will come to all these topics, tech, MBA, growth and all that, but let's begin with your childhood for context for our viewers. So where did you grow up? How was childhood like? And were you pushed to study hard right from childhood, or just tell us something about your childhood.
Oddly personal. So I grew up in Ramgarh. I was a studious student right from my childhood, and the credit for it definitely goes to my parents. Like for me, I would not say that I was pushed into doing this, but over the period of time, it became very natural. Studying was more or less a part of my daily routine. Like I did not know that, like for me, studying was like brushing your teeth. Like you kind of have to do it. So I think it was something like this that my parents inculcated in me right from my childhood. So of course they did not have to push me later. The push came from within. Once you start doing good, you start people around start having expectations from you, and you also see some good benefit when you are studying, getting good grades. So yeah, it was like that.
Okay, so this was your childhood. Now let's come to class 10, जहाँ पे एक बहुत life altering decisions लेते हैं हम लोग. How did you end up choosing science? Was it conscious या बस कि सारे अच्छे बच्चे जिनको marks अच्छे आते हैं class 10 में वो science लेते हैं? It was that kind of a decision.
It was not a conscious decision. Like I bluntly took science because again, as you said, that सब अच्छे 90% वाले बच्चे science लेते हैं, so you kind of have to take it. But it turned out to be good. I did not know that. Like I really don't know what had my life looked like had I not taken science. But yeah, it's good, I guess.
Okay, then comes class 11 and 12, the dreadful JEE period. How was it like for you? And yeah, I know in the end it ended up right. We both got into NIT, but how was that phase like?
I think that is when I started actually questioning myself that am I even a good student? Because I used to score good in my school exams, but the AITS, especially the JEE Advanced AITS, that was a very grim time. I saw that putting a lot of efforts also did not yield the results that I wanted. But towards the end, I got into NIT Jamshedpur, and I guess we're doing good.
Very good. Okay, so then JEE is over. You clear JEE mains with a really good rank. Now coming to this question, another very important question is you have to choose between a college and a branch, because there's always this trade-off कि अच्छे college में अच्छा branch नहीं मिल रहा होता और जिस college में अच्छा branch मिल रहा होता है वो college उतना अच्छा नहीं है. तो what did you learn अपने batchmates, अपने seniors, juniors को देख के, and now the trend that you see should be the trade-off किस चीज के लिए, where should the decision lie?
Okay. So I think for that, you have to think a couple of years in advance. Like, if you're joining a college, what do you really want from that? Like, do you, of course, people change with time. The thought process changes with time. I agree to that. But suppose I feel that now that I look back, I feel that if you're getting, say, a not so good branch, even in a premium IIT, the 7 old IITs, I think you should go ahead and take it, because the kind of opportunities is when I'm talking about opportunities, it's the placement opportunities, the career opportunities that these colleges provide you with are tremendous. Like, even if you happen to not be from a really good branch, if you have inculcated the right skills in those 4 years, the right skills, as in, say, suppose if you're a really good coder, even if you're not from CSE, or if you are good with certain other things that a certain industry wants you to be good at, I think you get good opportunity. I think the brand of the college matters more than your branch. Yes. Okay. Because it's not degree centric. Like, the industry right now, the job industry is not it's not branch centric, or it's not, it depends on your skills. So even if you happen to really not be from a good college, you might struggle with the very first work opportunities. But if you've inculcated the right skills, then of course you get opportunities a little later.
So now you've landed into NIT Jamshedpur, and I know that you were like participating in all kinds of cultural activities, but then I also saw you, right, like from third year, you just changed because you could see ahead in the future of how you want to upskill, and then you went for it. So I want you to tell our audience your progression from first year till fourth year, and what were the important decisions, conscious choices that you had to make sure that you make the most out of your college life. And you can also pinpoint things that if you think you did wrong, and you can point them out for the audience that you necessarily want to point out ki acha ye mat karna ya ye definitely karna.
So NIT Jamshedpur for me was like a 24/7 paid vacation. I mean, I had a whale of time. I had been a really good student up till college, and I've been slogging my ass off day in and day out, working for JEE. Even for standard 10th, I was working a lot. So once I got into college, I knew that there's a different world that exists. Like, I did happen to come from a school where co-curricular, extracurricular activities were, I mean, they were given importance, but not at the level that happens in college. Like, college opened a lot of other doors for me. So I think I went a little too far reveling in that. As you said, until my third year, that is when I thought that, okay, now's the time when I should actually start focusing on...
But also give the audience context of the plethora of activities that you were doing, participating.
So yeah, like, I was up till standard 12th, I used to literally be a part of nothing because...
You had to study.
Yeah, I had to study, and also because it did not kind of, you kind of have to have the right folks around you. So I did not have that because I was busy studying again. But then I went to college, and I found people like me, people who were interested in the kind of things I was interested in. Both of us got into literary and debating society. That, I think, was
the highlight of
my college. Most definitely. I cannot go about talking. I cannot go about talking about NIT Jamshedpur and not mentioning the literary and debating society, of course. And so yeah, you meet people there, and you make strong connections in the college clubs and societies. If you happen to be really good at certain sport, it goes for everything, like sports, cultural, non-cultural, technical teams. I've seen a lot of really strong bonds coming out of the technical teams that were there in our college. So I think it's really important for people to find people like them, because the connections that I've made there, by God's grace, are still there. We're still very good friends. We still check up on each other. Yeah, so I think that is what I did right in the first 2 years. Third year, I actually started getting that consciousness that, okay, all of that is good and you're having the time of your life, but you should also start paying attention to your placements. So that is when also I've been... I used to score good marks in my electrical and electronic subjects, but I never really thought of being an electrical engineer in a power plant, all of that. So for me, the only two back then in NIT Jamshedpur, we did not have a lot of options. I think for non-tech, for non-core actually, you had analytics, you had these coachings, and then you had coding. Like you had the IT sector companies visiting our college. So I decided that, like, I was not really sure, but I felt that IT sector kind of looks good. Let's give it a try. And that is when I started coding in my third year. Towards the end, like in my fourth year, I was able to get into Samsung. And so I think, yeah, that ended well.
And as someone who had seen you through the journey, like actually putting in the hours, logging in right from third year to fourth year, now when I look back, I feel like you made the absolute right decision. That's something that I beat myself for. I took the first placement I got and I did not put in the hours for coding. I think I should have done that. Otherwise, like, I wouldn't be here if I had coded in my college. But then it worked out super great for you.
Yes,
and we'll get into depth. So yeah, you started your professional career at Samsung. How is it, and how did you decide the switch? Was it for the money? Was it because you could not see yourself growing technically or otherwise?
So Samsung, I still call that my fifth year of engineering, because even back then I was having a really good time. I would start my work really late and was able to complete it before the deadline. Exactly what we used to do in college before exams. So that was fine, but why? I had the enjoyment and the time of my life that I wanted for the first 3 years. So that is when the career consciousness had kicked in.
Again.
Yes. So after placements, I was very conscious of what I want to do in my career, which again, I feel that I was not really sure of in the initial few years. Taking that into account, I felt that Samsung was really not the right place for me. Not that it's a bad company, I just did not feel that it would help me go to the place in my career where I want to be. It was a little slow paced, and something that I feel everyone in tech should do is get into like really fast paced companies at the start of their career. Like startups are, of course, you have your own opinions of if you have really slogged hard in your college, you would want to get into a company that's a little chill, and I completely understand that. But Samsung for me was that MNC that was giving you all the good facilities that you would expect an MNC to give. But in terms of career growth, in terms of tech growth, I did not see a lot. So we were kind of required to take those coding tests because it was a research institute and it expected, a certain percentage of its engineers to qualify that some advanced coding tests. So a lot of time went into that. So I was
instead of the actual work.
Instead of the actual work, yes. I did not really get a lot of opportunities to work on like features on a live project. So that is when I made the switch to CarDekho. So CarDekho again was a startup. I got to learn a lot.
Okay, Shubham. So we understand. You saw that you were not growing. You would not grow a lot in Samsung. So you decided for a switch. Now the question here is, how do you make your CV good enough so that you get callbacks, or what did you do right that you actually got callbacks from recruiters? You actually were able to get into the interview rounds.
Okay, so I think it was the start of my career. So I feel that my college did a really good, like the name of my college on my CV did a good job there. I was, 7 to 8 months into Samsung when I made a switch. Samsung also happened to be a really good brand name. So I think the first switch was mainly about good brand names.
Okay, and then we have a plethora of switches. So then CarDekho, Zeta. So the thing that I admire you the most from a distance is how are you making these switches? Okay, let alone the initial ones that happened because of a good college. But there are some skills that you're picking up along the way and you're good at portraying it on your CV and putting it out during the interviews. So how are you upskilling with the full-time job, and what is something that the audience can take away from you?
So I think being good at your job and cracking an interview, like both of these are two completely different ball games. So tech interviews, how I feel they are is they really focus a little less on the kind of work that you have done in your org. They have a very standard set of questions, a very standard set of procedures that they would follow, and they would assess you based on them instead of the kind of work that you have done. Of course, there are a few companies that would maybe expecting you to have worked really well, especially the startups. Like I got a call from a recruiter, wherein the manager asked me, like the very first call that I had with the manager was when he asked me, okay, tell me what are the challenging projects or challenging tech tasks that you have
in your current role.
Yes, undertaken in your current role in the past 6 months. So, but this I feel happens really less. This is like really high, fast-paced startups that have these questions. Apart from them, it's just good interview preparation. Of course, your CV has to look good. For that, I think you have to ensure that you take up good work. Like once you've gotten into an org, you have to ensure that like there are 10 types of works, okay, and all of you are engineers. Now the work is distributed among people depending on a lot of things: your capabilities, your punctuality, are you a reliable person, like if something has to be, if there is a deadline that has to be met, if there's some urgent work, have you showed a history of
that
delivering things on time
trusted,
in the past?
that you will be trusted
Yes.
for something time critical.
Yes. So I think you should make a conscious decision of, again, making sure that
You get
your
those
manager
opportunities.
perceives you as a reliable, trusted person. And for that, I've seen a lot of people who are really good with tech, but they don't really put in that effort to let people know that they can be trusted. You give them some work, they will do it, and that's it. But I think stakeholder management is also something that you should start paying attention to, at least when you are in the middle of your career, like after 3-4 years of experience. Yes. Because that is what gives you good opportunities. Good opportunities would make you would be something that would give you the limelight, that he has worked on a good project. He's trusted. So people who have had a good history of delivering things on time, have good stakeholder management, have good relations with the manager and other stakeholders, are the ones getting good projects.
And then you put those good projects in your CV, and then you have more to speak about in the interview. See, I did such impactful work.
Yes.
Wow. And what about the technical upskilling that goes along the way?
So I happen to work in Android, where the tech changes very drastically. Like Android, Google has something or the other coming up every second year, and that kind of drastically changes the way you used to code 2 years ago. So for me, it's not a choice, but it's something mandatory that you kind of have to upskill yourself. So a lot of it comes from your peers. Kind of you be friends with people who are into the same domain. You have to make a lot of side projects. So if you get to learn something new, so how do you implement it now? Like you make a very small side project. So everything that you learn, you incrementally keep on implementing that in your project. That is one. You could also take up courses on Udemy, Coursera.
Are these courses good? Like actually helpful to get your CV shortlisted?
Yes, most definitely. Definitely. You see the ratings, you see the reviews, and then you take up a course. So I think that is also very important. And yes, that so upskilling is also something that you could do on a very daily basis, based on, say, for me, it was my code reviews. Like I was blessed with a really good peer group at my companies, wherein they would actually point out things that were very subtle, because everyone comes from a very different experience, right? For me, so something that is very regular might be something terribly wrong in terms of coding, like in terms of good coding practices. I think that is also very important. Take your peer reviews, your code reviews really seriously. I think that's it. Yeah, about upskilling. Yes, take good courses, implement side projects, and take your one-on-ones and your peer reviews, your code reviews really seriously. I think that should do.
Those are very important points for someone who started their career. What about someone who's just in their, let's say, second or third year of college and who's starting coding?
Okay.
And they want to either get a good internship or get a good full-time role. What do you have for them?
So I think you should start, like, if you want to build a career in tech, the earlier you start coding, the better. So coding is also something like an exercise. Like the more you do it, the better you would be. So I think start coding and then have a few side projects. Like choose a tech that you feel you would like, you see a future in. Of course, that could change with time. You could be interested in a lot more than just one tech. That could be a possibility. Try different techs. Try, like, suppose if you are into app development, try building an app for yourself. Like if you see if you have a novel idea, and even if you don't have a novel idea, try building a clone of some app. And yeah, coding is non-negotiable. Like the data structures and algorithm is non-negotiable. A few companies have also started taking system design interviews for freshers.
Specifically for Android development.
No. System design is something that is across software development. Like how do you design, like if you have a feature at hand, how do you design the entire feature? Like what all components do you have to glue in together for it to look like the way it should look like?
Thank you, Shubham, for such a detailed discussion on tech. There is so much that I did not know about. Thank you so much. But another set of conversations that we've had personally is tech versus MBA. And I know that you had considered MBA very seriously for some time, but now we don't think that you're getting there. We will get there. As you see it, if you continue growing the paths that you are growing on, in how many years do you see yourself becoming a manager? And do you feel you will be skilled enough to manage a team, or you will need some kind of course for managing people? What is it like in the industry? Do you have technical managers more, or are there managers who come from management?
So in terms of, as you talked about the technical managers, so those are people who have actually been in tech. Those are people who have traversed this entire journey from being an SD1 to SD2 to SD3 to say tech lead, and then they have become managers. So this is it's a very common scenario in tech. Like I don't see a lot of people who have done an MBA becoming technical managers. So yeah, that's definitely an add-on. There are a few people who choose to continue being in tech even after they've done an MBA. For them, that MBA is just that something that provides them with the requisite skills to become better people managers. But yes, it's very common in tech to have people managers who have not done an MBA.
And you see yourself going along those lines?
Mostly yes. I mean, it's a very far-fetched future. That's like 8 to 10 years down the line is when generally you see people becoming managers, according to my research on LinkedIn. So you feel that I feel that like if you're doing everything right, if you are having career progressions in like 2.5 to 3 years, so I think you would end up as a manager in 10 years.
And now coming to your decision to deciding against doing an MBA because you're seeing yourself grow in the technical field. As I remember, Shubham, like roughly a year or two ago, you were actually considering switching, like getting into MBA. And I know that has changed now. So what led to that conclusion? Was it just monetary reasons or something else that you decided MBA is not for you and you will want to grow in tech?
I would not say MBA is completely like off the cards, but definitely it's really not in the pipeline in near future. Maybe a few years down the line, I might consider. I really haven't thought about
an international MBA.
International MBA or an EPGP program from the premier IIMs, but it's definitely not in the pipeline in the near future. So I was considering it like 2 years ago. Yeah, I started liking tech, I guess. I see that there's a really good growth and the kind of work that I want. So the reason I was considering MBA was like the very first reason was being in a B school. The rigmarole of the things that you do and the kind of experience that a B school brings. So I think that was one of the reasons. But I would really want to experience that, but not anytime soon. And tech, I think it's a really good career path if you start liking it, the kind of work and the kind of impact that you're bringing in. So if you're making something that is being used by billions of people, you see, like suppose I was a part of the UPI team of PayZapp, which again happens to be a payments app. So if you see the PayZapp QRs everywhere, and if someone's actually going ahead and using it, so it kind of gives you that satisfaction. So I think I'm going to be in tech for some time.
You started liking that feeling, and
Yep.
Of course, another consideration that many people have is the monetary aspect of doing an MBA, the career break that you have to take, the loan that you have to bear. And I've heard this from many people that economically switching from tech to MBA does not make sense. So do you agree with this?
I would say yes. I mean, like if you consider tier 1 companies, if you happen to crack that, and trust me, it's not really difficult. Like if you have the right amount of hard work in the right direction, it's very easy. So if you're doing an MBA primarily for money, I think I don't think it's the right decision. Like if you really want to if you want to make that pivot into the management field, if you really like what people do, not just for money, like I think you should go ahead. Definitely, you've got in one life.
MBA is not just for money, like as you said, career switches, or there are some people who look at it as a long-term decision. Okay, maybe initially it could be a pay cut, but the kind of people that I'll have access to, the kind of different industries I'll get to explore, and maybe in the long run they see the compounding value of an MBA. So yeah, like you said, if it's just for monetary reasons, does not make sense. But if you see the whole package, then maybe it can be a very good consideration.
Yes. It kind of opens doors for you to get into a lot of fields. But again, do you want those doors to be open for you? If you really like where you're going,
current room, then why
do you want the other doors to be open? Yes. So if you start considering mathematically, say someone who's in a tier 1 company, a startup or an MNC with like roughly 3.5 to 4 years of experience, they somewhere get around like, say take 30 for a rough number. Suppose they get 30 lakhs per annum. So considering that you would not be earning for 2 years, that's a loss of 30 plus 30, 60. Then you have a loan of 25
to 30
if you kind of haven't had your saving. So all of that adds up to, I think, a really huge number. So yeah,
90 lakhs precisely.
Yes. So I don't think just for the money you should not be doing it. It's really not the right decision.
Of course, I know, Shubham, that you have an amazing profile, but there are so many other things that I'm sure that you must have on point, like a very good CV, good projects, because of which you are getting so many interview calls and you're making so many switches. So what is it that you're doing right? What are the things that you feel others should do right if they want to make switches even in such a market?
So again, I think workplace learning is number one. So if you plan to make a switch today, you have to grind data structures and algorithms for like close to a month and a half. Then you have your system design preparations that would again take 15-20 days depending on how hectic your work is. So if today you decide that you're going to make a switch, you'll have to have like 2.5 months of preparation. See, depending on, again, I'm telling you based on my experience, like I come from a little hectic work-life balance company. So I think something that you do on a and data structure algorithms and system design is something that is not a part of your day-to-day work. Okay? So you have to have a separate prep for this. So I think workplace learning is something you should take into account very seriously. Like if you are developing something and you have a senior engineer who is by your side, it's very easy to, kind of surpass his advices, because a person could only give you advice till a certain point when you want to take it. So if you want to merge a really bad code, at times you'd be able to get away with it. But that comes and bite you in the back when you are interviewing. Because all this while you'll be preparing for, say like a static portion of your interview. The things that you learn based on your experiences, you're neglecting them. So make sure that you don't do that. Like if you happen to have a really good peer group, if you happen to have really good senior devs in your team, make sure to extract as much as possible. Like even if you are a part of a meeting wherein your features is not being discussed, somebody else's features is being discussed, try to extract the most out of it. If you're sitting there for an hour, try to get the most out of it. Now this is something that you have to start as a habit. You cannot start doing this
before
all of a sudden. Yes, because these, there are certain questions, of course, you could tamper them and prepare the answers. Like tell me about an incident where you had a conflict. Now this is a very standard question. Now if somebody talks about something that isn't standard, isn't a very standard question when it comes to, say, managerial rounds, if you've actually had those experiences, it shows. It tells the manager if you've actually had that experience, or are you just like fabricating a story. So that is something, I think that is something that makes you a better engineer. Of course, your prep for the interview would help you land into a good job, but your workplace learnings is something that makes you a better engineer. For people who have already been in tech, in the industry for more years than you have, when they are doling out advices, you better take them.
No, but this is one step ahead. I'm still at the point where you're updating your CV, where you're applying, where you're cold milling, where you're gathering referrals. Tell us about that process. How many places do you apply to get at least even 2 callbacks? So tell us about that process.
So, like my primary source of applying has always been LinkedIn. I haven't really. You have to be very active on LinkedIn. You kind of have to make the right connections. So right now at this point of time, I have the connections such that if there happens to be an Android developer opening at so and so company, I kind of get that on my feed. Because I keep on following the right people.
Recruiters.
Yes, recruiters or managers or people who casually, post about the openings that are there. People who are Android developers. So that is one conscious effort that I make. Again, not really at the time of making a switch, but throughout. Yes. So that is step one. Referrals ke liye you kind of have to build a good connection. So luckily I have friends in good companies and I kind of always know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So referral ka, I think that is handled there. Apart from that, there are a few companies jinke recruiters, they reach out to you directly on LinkedIn, but that does not happen very often. So you kind of have to be very conscious while you're making a switch that you have to keep on seeing every single day. So there's this one time when I was applying for jobs outside India. So that day, that time, like once in every 5 days, I'd go and see if there are new openings and I'd go ahead and apply. Because of course, those openings don't kind of appear in my feed. So you choose the role that you're applying for, you choose the location as say London, and then you go ahead and apply. So yeah, that's how it is done.
And then what are the number of applications that you send out? Let's say to get 5 callbacks, how many would you have applied to roughly?
I think I do get callbacks for like, if so my role is a little niche, so Android developer. So if they have Android developer openings, and if it is within India, I kind of get like 70 to 80% conversions, at least in terms of the HR reaching out to me for the preliminary conversation.
And then what do you think about your CV is right? Is it the life projects? Is it the brand names? Is it experience?
I haven't really gotten time to kind of have my own separate life projects, but I've been lucky to just like all the companies that I've been a part of, I've been a part of really good teams. Like my last company, I was a part of the team that built the entire UPI systems. So that kind of is a very, hot thing in the market. So if you kind of work on those things, you generally like, they put out a really good impression. So making sure that, you getting into which team is really not dependent in your hands, yes. But once you've gotten into a good, like any team, make sure that you get at least the good projects in that team. And as we talked about earlier, you kind of have to build that social equity, that you are trustworthy, you're good with tech, all of that.
So within the team, you get the best projects and then you pitch it whenever
and you deliver it, yes. And even it's not just for the switches. I feel that, the team awards or say a general rapport within the team. Like if you happen to work on good projects, people really view you as a really good engineer.
So Shubham, you've been fairly lucky with the kind of college you went to, your first company and the further switches.
Most definitely, yes.
But not everyone has those kind of opportunities. There are so many engineers from tier 3 colleges, or even if they have been from decent colleges, they land up at a not so good first job. Let's say anywhere around 4 to 6 LPA. And 1 to 2 years into the company, they are stuck. They don't know if they can upskill and get a much better tech job, or then they look at MBA. So what advice do you have for them? Should they put their shoes down and upskill and grow in tech? Do you see that as a more lucrative option, or going for an MBA?
So if for someone who has worked in tech for 2.5 years, the kind of work that you're doing, right? See, the kind of work that you are doing and the kind of work that you have the potential to do, the kind of work that could come your way if you make the switch. So if you've been in that business for 2 years, you kind of have a fairly good idea. You see people who are say 7 years into the company, the kind of work that they are getting. Does that excite you? So is it just the money factor that is making you go for an MBA? Then again, I would say no, it's not a good option, because tech also has, apart from a few sections of the jobs that you get after MBA, tech fairly has an equivalent pay as MBA. So for pay, I would not suggest that you go ahead and do it, because I feel that, people who do MBA are a certain, like a breed of people. Like they have certain skills in place, and not every engineer
has those
that,
skills
yes.
or wants to develop those skills.
True that, definitely. Those are good skills to have, but not everyone wants to develop those skills. So I think if you take that route wherein you develop those skills, get into an MBA college, I think that's a very long route that takes more time. Even if you're doing that just for MBA, like just for money, I think upskilling yourself and going ahead in tech should be a better option. If you're lucky to kind of come from a background that you've gotten those skills as gifts, so I think you should definitely go ahead and do an MBA. Like depends on the kind of skills you have and
the person you
most definitely, and your long-term career vision, and not just on say money.
Okay, so let's
money
say
should not be the basis on which you should be making that decision.
So let's say now this person understands for themselves that no, they don't want to do an MBA, they want to grow in tech. But now they are stuck in a low-paying, very low-growth tech job. What is it, actionable points that they can do to make the switch to grow?
Grind lead code, nothing else. Like not just lead code, like there are other coding platforms. Go ahead and grind. You have daily problems, weekly problems. There are people who maintain streak of solving problems. So befriend such kind of people, be into that group. Like find people who are kind of stuck in that situation and are really serious about taking that leap. So yeah, just grind DSA and grind and have a few side projects on your own. It does not take a lot of time.
And you think that lead code rank or lead code streak on your CV will be good enough to get them an interview call? Because
unless it's very good, no, but at least you'll be confident while you'll be going in an interview.
But then how to get those interview calls if you don't have much on your CV other than...
I think that for that you kind of have to do that cold mailing, that entire process of cold mailing people, sending out messages for referrals. Because if you really don't have good brands on your CV, it's a little difficult to get your first job.
Exactly.
But it's just that first thing, like first job, like once you get a good job, post that, getting other jobs is not difficult. Like you could actually negotiate a lot.
Absolutely agreed. But how to make that first from not so good company to good company switch? How to get the first interview call?
Yeah, for that I think you have to, like, I've seen a lot of people there was this ad by Tata Sky, and it said "Poochne mein kya jata hai." So I think you should be shameless in front of the HRs. Like there have been times when the years of experience that they were looking for was higher than my years of experience, but I've still asked them, can you please try and give me a chance? So there have been times when I've asked the HRs things that generally people would not ask, and I'm not saying that all of them have turned out to be good. The max they could do is decline your request.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to hurt you in any way. So try explaining, if you happen to have that conversation with the HR or someone that happens to be in a company where there's an opening, and you kind of have a personal connection which could refer you. Try telling him to pitch for you. Like that is one thing. The other thing is, of course, that cold mailing and sending out requests to people on LinkedIn. Having that good network on LinkedIn where you'll get to know that at least there's a job opening. So if you're applying for a certain role, like if you know that you're applying for say a front-end role and you have been a back-end engineer in your previous company, try taking up a course. And of course, like, taking up a course for that one job is not really beneficial. But if you want to like expand your horizons, I mean, try having side projects for as many tech stack as possible, so that if you happen to have say an iOS opening tomorrow, you are in line with the skills. Or tomorrow you happen to have something which is related, some Python thing, you have that skill. So try expanding your skills. That is number one. Have as many live projects as possible. Show that you are versatile. Show that even if the skill that they're looking for is really not in your CV, but you have an array of other skills. Like if you could learn 7, you could easily learn that one skill. So that, and make sure that you have a really good preparation of data structure and algorithms, because getting an interview might be difficult, but if you get that interview and you spoil it,
That feels worse.
That
Yes.
feels worse because you already know that you're not going to get a lot of chances. So make sure that while you are going for an interview, you know that it's not a trial run.
So there's no easy way out. Everyone has to go through the grind, and there are people who are coming out of it victorious.
Yes, most definitely. See, like I've seen a lot of people, like tech I feel is life changing. Every day you scroll LinkedIn, you see success stories of people switching from which to FAANG. So
Which
which is that Wipro, Infosys, TCS, Cognizant, and HCL.
to FAANG. Okay,
To FAANG,
we know
yes.
FAANG.
So yeah, so those stories are real, and those stories are not like one in a million. You see a lot of people doing it. So they've just put in the right amount of hard work, right amount of grind in a certain direction. They, have a deadline that I want to start applying to companies by say the end of next month, and make the preparations accordingly.
Wow. We covered a broad range of topics, and I'm almost done with my questions. We covered tech to MBA. I'm just grateful. Thank you so much, Shubham, for agreeing to do this conversation with me. And it was amazing talking to you as always.
Thank you for having me, Ria. The pleasure was all mine.